Back with us on the conversation, the final segment with the PNP General Secretary, Julian Robinson. He says that the argument being spun that the PNP's intervention in the issues which have bedeviled Petrojam over the past 3 or 4 months has nothing to do with them protecting persons so-called sympathizing to them and their cause. It just has to do with governance and the upholding of good governance and the calling out of the governing JLP for what he says issues concerning maladministration, nepotism, cronyism, and downright corruption, and he's sticking to his guns. So let us resume. Petrojam again. You have, in the previous segment, said, look, the issues there are clear, and you're saying that already issues have emerged which make you anticipate even more damaging revelations. Absolutely. When the reports come from the Auditor General.
I mean, you take another example. You had someone, the group managing director, who's now back at Petrojam.
Yes.
Someone was being,
Winston
Watson. Yes. Someone was being paid $17,000 a month.
Yes.
That's about 2.3 or 2.4 million Jamaican a month to provide services for which PCJ could provide.
Yes.
Right? Those services were never tendered. They were never put to anything competitive. Right? That is extravagance. You have heard of a party or a retreat costing $25 million. I mean, that's just excess. Mm-hmm. Now people saying, oh, the PNP shouldn't talk because it happened under the PNP. Then provide the evidence of where it did. Mm-hmm. And what, that makes it, that justifies the action? Mm-hmm. That can't justify the action. The things at Petrojam, and we don't reach NESAL yet. We don't reach the USF yet. When we have only had a break because public PAAC has taken a break in August. Yes. When it resumes in September, we will continue the scrutiny. Yes. And I am hoping that these reports will be done in very short order. Yes. So that the public, because when we raise it, this is the argument that you get. When independent,
oh, but I thought it was my argument.
Eh? Well, you are repeating the labor right arguments out there. You're repeating the labor right arguments out there. When the investigative bodies like the Auditor General, the Integrity Commission, then we can see the facts. But you already have enough damning evidence as to why has Minister Wheatley resigned then? Yes. If everything was fine, if this was just a figment of PNP propaganda, why have so many people resigned? Yes. We have never had an issue ever, certainly in independent Jamaica, in a particular ministry, where so many people have resigned. Never.
But perhaps it is that the people have resigned because, in keeping with good governance and the controversy around their office, Julian, they've taken the step to step away rather than persons in previous administrations who dug in.
Listen, again, you know,
respond to me on that point.
You spin very well.
No, not spinning.
You spin for the green people very well. Hear me. The pressure was brought to bear. Yes. One from the opposition, but also civil society. You had the PSOJ, the GMA, the JEA, the church groups who came together, who wrote to the Prime Minister, who in essence demanded action. It wasn't just the PNP.
But there was controversy around the church groups' response though, because it emerged that the Jamaica umbrella groups of churches, which sent a press release on behalf of its members, that its membership wasn't consulted before the release was published, to the extent that there was a follow-up release effectively retracting what had been said, because saying that members weren't canvassed and we cannot be joined to a statement that we weren't privy to the discussions.
Take that apart.
So take that apart, because you have enough to make the point.
All I'm saying is you had a number of independent organizations, business organizations, civil society, questioning the governance practices. So it wasn't just an issue of the PNP raising it. Other people in society were saying, listen, what we see we don't like, and we want action. And I think pressure was brought to bear on the government, and the government had to act.
You see, your life is particularly difficult, Julian, because, and not you individually. One of the things I've learned from political leaders is, personally, is how to move on from criticism, especially strong criticism from persons, be it in media or your colleagues across the floor or in the business community. A man writes something bad about you or says something bad about you, you still can sit with him and you can have a conversation. I say that to say that a part of the difficulty the PNP has is that over time, there have been so many instances where one thing is done by the party in government, one thing is said by the party in government, and then it has to, by virtue of being an opposition party, when it is out of power, has to criticize something that it too did when in power. And when that is brought back to say, well, you're criticizing this, but you did that, there's always a resistance to that point being drawn, as if to say, well, you can't hold us accountable for what we did, even though we did similar to what we're now criticizing. I wonder how you get through that.
Yeah, and that's real. I'm not going to say it's not real. It is real, and it is an issue which affects your credibility from time to time. But I would say, what is the role of an opposition party?
Yes.
The role of an opposition party is to hold a government to account.
Yes.
If we took the view that, well, because we did stuff in the past, we shouldn't say anything, then what? We should just allow everything to just run as it is, and all of us would have been fine. Having heard the things we have heard now about Petrojan, and we have heard everything.
Yes.
Would it have been better for me not to have raised the issue?
Those issues had to be raised.
And that's the point.
Those issues had to be raised.
It doesn't mean that you are, because you raise it, you are saying, I have a pristine past and I am perfect. No.
Or you don't have to own a pristine past in order to criticize something.
Because that's the role of any opposition, of any responsible opposition.
But here's the thing, on another issue, related.
Sure.
What the PNP said and did in government against what they are criticizing now in opposition, the issue of the dollar. And I brought my notes here. Usually I quote from my head, but I wanted to be precise in this regard.
Okay.
Dr. Phillips has criticized the devaluation of the currency. As an opposition leader in any functioning democracy should. But the difficulty is that when he was finance minister, and he came under pressure for the movement of the dollar, call it the adverse movement. He had some explanations as to why it was a non-issue. For instance, according to the Jamaica Information Service, August 19, 2014, while opening while speaking in Parliament, Dr. Phillips said, quote, "The most important point to note is simply that when you have an overvalued currency, in effect, what you are doing is exporting your jobs and allowing persons overseas to produce for your consumption rather than allowing your own producer to get the benefit of that productive activity. Much of this is to be seen because the workout of new production systems will take some time to develop. And, crucially, the country's nominal exchange rate does not determine whether the currency is weak or strong." Against the background of those statements, when you are a finance minister, Julian Robinson, it is difficult, even though he is opposition leader, to reconcile Dr. Phillips's criticism of the movement of the dollar.
Then why you don't take Audley Shaw? Why we don't look at what Audley Shaw said when he was the opposition spokesman on finance during the PNP administration and what is taking place now? The reality is, all right, the dollar thing is a complex thing, right? The BOJ is obviously working with inflation and particular inflation targets, and using that to benchmark against our competitors, mainly the US, right? And trying to align things. But at the micro level, we are still an economy that imports the majority of what we produce and what we consume. And once there's a depreciation, there's an automatic increase, one, in the price of electricity because of oil, in the price of gas because of the dependence on oil, and also the impact on transportation and goods and services. So there's no question that when you have a depreciation, it hurts consumers who don't earn foreign exchange. Now, there are some people who benefit from a depreciation. If you are a net earner of US dollars, like in the tourism industry, where your expenses are in Jamaican dollars, you may benefit, or if you are in the BPO industry. So there are some industries that benefit, and relatively speaking, your services and goods become cheaper to external parties, right? But for the majority of Jamaican people, depreciation hits them in the pocket. Now, an opposition has to speak out on behalf of those persons because they don't have their own voices.
Yeah, hear you on that.
So while, I mean, and the Minister of Finance has been trying to explain this thing all of those things, The bottom line is you have people who are being impacted every day.
Yes.
I can speak as somebody who put gas in my car.
Yes.
There's probably, I'm paying $1,000 more for gas than I did a couple months ago. That's real, right? I know inflation by our official measures, and I'm not going to challenge the official measures. The basket that is used is about 2%. But again, if anybody who has to buy vegetables at the market and other goods, you can see the real increases.
But the precise explanation that has come from you, not even explanation, the reason that has come from you, when that was put to Dr. Phillips as finance minister, he gave you the answer that I quoted.
I understand.
So I'm just saying that these are the things that get in the way of message transmission, and it's a difficult thing to manage because at the end of the day, you're an opposition party that has to hold the government's feet to the fire.
But you know, again, why not use the Prime Minister as an example?
Yes.
You should quote what he said when we were in government about the depreciation in the currency.
I didn't say it's not a cycle on both sides.
And the
or you're on the treadmill running.
And the things he said when and all they went about the dollar wine and the dollar slide. Yes. And frankly, within the Labour Party, I know there are different views about whether the currency should be allowed to find its equilibrium or whether there should be this more managed intervention.
So that means then that the current finance minister, Dr. Nigel Clark, given that we can cite examples on both sides of what you said as opposed to what you're saying now, that the issue of the dollar should be removed from the political cascas and the hustings. You would agree with that?
I do believe there should be some level of independence for the central bank, some level. I personally, and this is not a PNP view, and I want to tell you that I'm totally sold on policymakers having no say or influence on the value of the currency, given that it affects so many other things. I know BOJ's job and the government keep inflation low. That's important. But I wouldn't say I am 100% comfortable with, as policymakers, as the persons who are elected, that you have absolutely no leverage, right? And leverage may mean the extent of the interventions of the Bank of Jamaica to bring stability. Because the BOJ does influence it. If it pumps a lot of US, it stabilizes. If it sits back, then it's going to run further. I don't think that should be totally left solely to the governor to decide. No, I don't.
Excellent. Julian Roberts, it's been good jousting with you.
Thank you.
And for the benefit, you should know that I have as many friends on the green side as I do on the orange side.
Really?
Yes.
You want to carry the green argument today?
Thank you very much. That's it for the conversation this week. We'll be back next week with another riveting episode for you.